Hello, everybody. Welcome to another fun episode of Social Studies with Scroy. Today, we are tackling enduring issues, everybody's favorite. What we're going to be working on today is an enduring issue task that I'm going to walk through with you a little bit, and then I will leave you to independently complete the actual organizer on your own. So to do that, I'm going to first get rid of my camera. That way I'm not distracting you. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about this enduring issue task in particular. So this task will assess your ability to look at two sources of information and determine the common theme that exists between them. And for this particular set of documents that I've provided, there are multiple correct answers to the enduring issue task that we'll be exploring a little bit more later on. So what's going to happen is I'm going to read these documents to you in a few moments, and then we will take a look at the task itself that's on page 2, and kind of take a look at the enduring issues that we have and narrow down our choices to get to the best possible decisions. All right. So before we get there, let's just review some of our enduring issues since it's been a little while since we've looked at it in a class. I know that you had an enduring issue in your lesson 17 task 2 the other day, but this is a good review just so that if we're not familiar with the enduring issues or we need a little bit of a refresher, I'll read them aloud to you and explain them a little bit. So the first one is human interaction with the environment, how people use and impact the land surrounding them. So are people using the land surrounding them for farming? Are they using it for railroad construction or construction of infrastructure? Are they using it for trade? Are they using bodies of water to navigate from one place to another? So all of those components, if it has to do with the physical environment or the geography, that would go into the first one. The second enduring issue is conflict, a serious disagreement or argument. So we're looking at maybe two sides or even more than two sides of a particular problem where you have different people or different groups of people coming together to argue that central issue. All right. And we've looked at a lot of examples of conflict in Social Studies 7 this year. So far, we've looked at the American Revolution. We've looked at the War of 1812. We've looked at, even within the American Revolution, the conflicts between patriots and loyalists, right? So there's a lot of examples of conflict that we've explored this year. So it seems to be a pretty common theme that we've discovered. The third enduring issue is power. So influence or control over the behavior of people. So how does one person or one group of people try to control the actions and behaviors of another group of people? So when we studied American colonization, we definitely looked at an example of power in that the British were always trying to control the actions and the economies of the 13 colonies. They were always trying to show power between or over the American colonists by creating these laws that would kind of keep them in line. That's kind of a throwback, but it's a good example of power. The next enduring issue is impact of ideas and beliefs, how new ways of thinking affect people. So this would tie into any sort of idea or belief system that has changed the way or affects the way people live their daily lives. So an example of this might be when the Constitution was being created and drafted, how you had some groups of people that wanted the Constitution to be ratified. Those were the Federalists. And you also had others who did not support the ratification of the Constitution, the Anti-Federalists. And they tried to encourage more and more people to believe their point of view by sharing if you're a federalist, for example, the benefits of a larger central government. Right, but if you're an anti-federalist, you might argue the importance of individual rights. So those sorts of ideas would fall under impact of ideas and beliefs, how new ways of thinking affect people. The last enduring issue is technology. This is equipment that makes use of advanced knowledge and skill to solve a problem or complete a task. So technology has been exemplified in a lot of different areas of study this year. Most recently, I think when we looked at the Erie Canal and the cotton gin, those were lessons that were given to you at the very beginning of this quarantine. So you might remember them from some Edpuzzle videos that I shared with you in mid-March. And those are solid examples of technology, especially, well, I was going to say especially the cotton gin, but really both of them, because they show how this new tool, for example, the cotton gin, was introduced to the Southern economy, and that was used to shape the way cotton production was done, and ultimately got through cotton production at a much quicker rate than what was done before. So it totally changed people's lives, right? So those were some examples and discussions of the enduring issues. Now what we're going to do is jump back up to the top. We're going to read and annotate this a little bit for both documents. And then with my annotations, that should be a good base for you to start working on your enduring issue here. All right, so I'm going to scroll back up one more time. We're going to take a look at document 1. This is written by Thomas Jefferson. It is an excerpt from the Declaration of Independence from 1776. It may sound familiar to you because we did work on this study of this document in the past. All right, so follow with me. I will read aloud and annotate. We hold these truths to be self-evident or obvious, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, meaning rights that cannot be taken away, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving or getting their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is in the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to then shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. All right, so that's our first document. It's taken from the Declaration of Independence. The second document is the visual that we looked at the other day when we studied lesson 17. This is a picture taken from Our Countrymen in Chains. Am I not a man and a brother? So we've studied this one before. For both of these sources, I'm going to write in some additional notes that might help. And these are going to be notes to help me summarize. Actually, to help contextualize and summarize. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at knowing which button to use for these colors. Okay, so for document 1, I'm going to include here a couple of additional notes. The first is that in 1776, I'm going to do a little bit of contextualization. The American Revolution was taking place. American colonists, known as patriots, were trying to break away from Great Britain and declare will really declare independence. Declare their own independence and freedom. They wanted to rule themselves in a separate nation, or as a separate nation from Great Britain. Right? They wanted total independence and total freedom. And some of the key points from this Declaration of Independence is that people were thought to be given these unalienable rights that couldn't be taken away. So I'm going to add that into my summary a little bit. Let me just make this a little smaller so that I can fit everything that I need. So I'm going to write in here for my summary, Jefferson and other patriots felt Americans should be, I don't want to say given freedom, or that this is how I'm going to change it. Sorry, let me just fix this. Felt the government was designed to protect individual rights of the people. Right, so that helps me determine a little bit more summary from this source itself. So in declaring their independence, the patriots are saying that the power of the government comes from those who are governed, right? It comes from the people. So let me highlight that and we'll annotate it. And the government's job is to protect individual rights of all beings. So let me just throw a comment in there. The consent of the governed. This means the government's power comes from the people. So I'm annotating that there. Beautiful. Okay, so I have my first document done to help me with my enduring issue. Now I'm going to type in a couple of additional notes for, why is that doing that? Okay. For my document 2. This might be easier for you to recall since we learned this in our previous lesson. It's a lot more recent of information that was taught to you guys. So this picture was shared during the antebellum era. Oops, this is already a little too big. I'm going to make this a tad bit smaller. You can do that too in your own Google Doc if you want. That way you have room to write these notes. Right. This picture was shared during the antebellum era to promote abolition, or to promote the abolition movement. Abolitionists wanted to get rid of slavery in the entire country, not just in one region of the United States, like in the North, where slavery was already outlawed. Okay, and then I might specify some other pieces of information here. So the creator is suggesting that all people, regardless of skin color, should be considered equal. Okay, I'll make this just a little smaller. So I have all my notes here. So writing notes like this helps to get your thoughts out on paper before you start tackling the organizer. And it helps you kind of summarize what it is that you're examining, whether that be in words or in a visual. All right. So I strongly encourage you to include these in your work. All right, now for the enduring issue task. So this task is going to assess to the extent that you are able to examine the two sources that we've studied and determine the common theme that exists between them. All right, so what I'm going to do with you here is look at the 5. We've already reviewed all 5 in detail. We're going to start knocking out ones that we know for sure are not correct choices. So let's look at human interaction with the environment, how people use and impact the land surrounding them. I really don't see that taking place in either source. I'm not seeing any mention of the geography of the land, whether it be in the 13 colonies or in antebellum America. I don't see any mention or reference to that. So I am going to cross that out if I knew how to do that in a text. Okay, so I can strike through, and that means that we're getting rid of it. If it makes it easier for you too, you could also just delete it and totally remove it. That way you're not even looking at it. It's up to you how you want to do that. I'm going to strike through and cross it out as though I were taking a pen to paper and physically crossing out that choice. All right, let's look at conflict, a serious disagreement or argument. Conflict can be evidenced in these sources. There's definitely in document 1 and document 2, there is evidence of a conflict hinted here. Now, you don't see the names of the two sides that are fighting in document 1 or in document 2, for example, but you can certainly extract that using evidence from these two sources. So I'm going to leave this one alone. That looks good. Power, influence or control over the behavior of people. This one's a little tricky. But I think that it can be defended using evidence from documents 1 and 2. So you have to think carefully about how you want to do that. You might need to pull out some outside knowledge to help you contextualize a little bit more of what's being discussed in documents 1 and 2, but it is possible to defend that one. That one, I would say, is probably going to be the most challenging of your choices to defend, but it is possible. The last one, impact of ideas, or the second to last one rather, impact of ideas and beliefs, how new ways of thinking affect people. You can definitely defend that using documents 1 and 2, for sure. And I would say you want to refer to the additional notes for all of the choices, regardless of which one you make. You definitely want to refer to the additional notes that you took for these sources. But you can certainly, I think, quite easily defend that one using your documents. And technology, equipment that makes use of advanced knowledge and skill to solve a problem or complete a task. Okay, so I'm not seeing evidence of technology in either one of these sources. I don't see any mention of new equipment or tools that are used to help people and make their lives easier or more, not make their lives more convenient, but make daily tasks easier and more convenient to complete. So since I don't see technology there, I'm going to do the same thing and just give it the old cross out. Goodbye. Okay, there we go. So folks, you have a decision to make on which of these three you want to defend in your organizer. And I'm being slightly intentional in that I'm not telling you which one to do, because I want you to think about it on your own and make the decision and defend it using evidence. But I will give you some pointers on how to cite your evidence. So for example, when you are using evidence from the sources to defend your choice, you're not going to just copy paste directly, right? I'm not going to copy paste like this and then throw it into here. Like, that's not what I'm going to do. Instead, what I would like to do is summarize the evidence in a sentence, right? So I might say something like, Thomas Jefferson says, a government's power comes from the people. He says this in, and then what I would do is go up and copy and paste the quote. But I don't want to just take the quote directly and call it a day and say, all right, I'm done. Because when you're doing that, you're not showing me that you can explain the evidence to support the enduring issue. You're showing me that you know how to copy and paste text. And we want to be really mindful about how we do that. All right. The same thing with document 2. You could say, when you're citing your evidence, now remember, you want to think carefully about the evidence that you cite in relation to the enduring issue. But if you need help citing the evidence, you might say something like, the banner at the bottom of the image reads, am I not a man and a brother? This means the author or the artist supports equality among blacks and whites in the United States, right? You're kind of summarizing the evidence that you're choosing. You're not just telling me what the quote is, but you're telling me the meaning of it too. Okay. Now, the summary for documents 1 and 2 are an example of blank as an enduring issue, because you want to try to link this back to the connection that they have. So let's say, for example, if you were choosing conflict, right? Both sources or both documents show an example of conflict. Document 1 shows conflict by, and then you would say, you'd say what it is, and then you would do the same thing for document 2 shows a conflict by, and then explain that. So your summary for the last piece, it shouldn't really be, I would say, more than 4 sentences. You don't need to write me any essays for any of this. I know I have some students that tend to write a lot. When I say a lot, I mean a lot. Like you're writing an essay for something that doesn't require a whole essay response. Keep it short and simple. You don't need to go too crazy. You just want to make sure that all components are addressed. So it's a little tricky because you are finding that fine balance. You don't want to be too vague, but you also don't want to write too much. All right. So I would say for the evidence for documents 1, 2, and then the task at the bottom, I would say no more than 4 sentences. Okay. So that kind of leaves you to determine which of these 3 you want to choose. All right. I'm removing these just so that you don't need to type those in directly. It was just more of a modeling tool for you. And you're off and running. So I will be here if you have any questions or concerns or need any support. On Friday, I'm here all day. So you can shoot me an email. You can comment on Google Classroom. You can write in our shared Google Doc. There are You can send me a remind, text. There are so many ways for you to get in touch with me, so I strongly encourage you to do so. There's really no shame in it at all. I'm here to help you and support you. All right, so that brings us to the end of this fun episode of Social Studies with Scroy. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helped you explore enduring issues a bit further while we are all exploring this period of distant learning. And I will see you soon. All right, be happy and be safe and have a great weekend.